The Backup is where we talk about the most hard-hitting news of the week as long as it's related to video games. Barnaby Joyce could be involved in a new leadership spill as the Nationals enter killing season. The only killing season we're interested in here is season 4 of Call of Duty. Am I right, Gus?
Way to make this just totally Australian relevant. Good. So long, international listeners and viewers.
I honestly, I've seen the stats. I think we have 4 international viewers and listeners.
And that's just
then it's up to them
Australians
to do their
VPNs,
research.
for sure. That's just
Yeah,
Aussies going like, oh, I want to watch American Netflix and forgot to change back before tuning into the Back podcast.
Totally. And one of those Aussies who definitely knows how to use a VPN is, of course, Hero Pocketeer Tim for the Learn Programming Academy. Get your exclamation mark Tims out in the chat because the Learn Programming Academy offers classes covering the entire range of programming that are easy to watch for all skill levels, and they're almost all $20 or less, which is so cheap. It is so cheap. Imagine being able to learn anything for $20. I mean, granted, there's a lot of things in the world that you can learn for completely free, but not with the skill with which Tim would teach you.
I was trying to think of like the relevance of like, oh, that's just throwing down a $20 note. And then I remembered I can't remember what a $20 note looks like. I was going to say the color of it. And I'm like, I haven't seen cash in hand for that long. So if you want to remember what a $20 bill looks like, go and get one and give it to Tim and learn some coding.
I'm sure they've got the new design to them as well. I haven't seen like, you know, they redid the 5 and then the 50 and stuff. I want to see the 20. If you've got a 20 show, I want to see it.
Speaking of, well, I don't have a 20. I've got 2 pineapples sitting right here.
Oh. See, the pineapple is the only one I remember and have. Yeah.
Look at that's the old design and the new design. Is it legal to show money on Twitch? I'm sure it is.
No.
The only reason I bring this up, besides flaunting my enormous wealth, is that I'm with you guys. This $100 has been sitting on my desk for 3.5 months, and I have nothing to
is
do.
That
like
petty
it's just
cash?
like. No, it's not. It was money that I took out when this is so boring. When we were getting our floors upstairs redone, and I needed to like pay people to move furniture for me, and then a bunch of stuff happened, and I never needed to actually give them this. So it just sits on my desk the whole time. There's a cup of coffee on it this morning. One fell off the desk a week ago, and I didn't even pick it up. Ridiculous.
I have the same amount in my wallet, and I got it for far more exciting and interesting reasons that I can't sell on Twitch. So, yeah, we'll just move on.
Oh,
all right, good. How exciting. This incredibly long-winded ad spiel should end with head to lpa.dev/backpocket to download the custom Tim Backpocket info guide on everything Tim has to offer and become the coding genius you didn't always know you were, or you didn't know you always were. It's been a while. You know who it hasn't been a while for? Todd Howard.
Nice.
Because we saw him last week. The man is busy making video games. He's making video games now on fewer platforms, and he says that making games on fewer platforms will mean better games. Melindy Hetfield from PCGamer.com said Todd Howard spoke to The Telegraph about what it means from a development standpoint by joining Microsoft and Game Pass. Quote, by focusing on those platforms, you really get to lean in a lot on making it the best it can be for those systems. This isn't an unreasonable thought because developing for PC and Xbox means the team won't have to make sure their game adapts to PlayStation hardware, although Howard specifically won't mention Sony's console with the statement. The Bethesda jank is very well documented. Do you think, Peter, as the person who I feel like has the most affinity with game development out of the three of us, that one less platform means significantly less jank?
I don't think so, because they're not making this an Xbox exclusive. They're not building this for one set of architecture. They're building it for PC as well, which is a little more dynamic in terms of like the kinds of pieces of equipment that it's going to need to work with. And therefore, like any cross-platform game, it should have that kind of scalability in terms of mastering for PS5. I think it would save them the time of doing that, but that's, I don't think in the scheme of things, a massive deal in terms of development. For a studio that's already developing a multi-platform, multi-hardware configuration engine and game. So he's full of shit, basically, is what I'm saying.
That's true. It was just, he's just out there. I was going to say trying to get good faith with Microsoft, but that's not even what this does. The interesting thing is that he actually says in his response, because they asked him about PlayStation and will titles ever come to PlayStation, and he ended his interview by saying, quote, "Well, I will just say I want everyone to have the ability to play it in some fashion."
Was it said at the end because he was literally pulled away at that point? Like a large hand just went, no.
a large Phil Spencer shaped hand grabbed him around the throat.
A leather jacket went over his head and he was dragged away.
Yeah, totally.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's just something I'm sure as a developer, you're accustomed to saying in terms of you want as many people to play your game as possible. And I think there's genuine, attachment to the fact that there's that as well as just showing the company line for Microsoft. Because it feels strange that that he's probably hinting at the fact that in 7 to 8 to 10 years, of course, this game will find its way onto other platforms, being Starfield or whatever the next Bethesda game is. Something will happen. It always tends to. Deals will happen. Palms will be greased. 50s will be handed across from one to another. And it's like, it'll eventually get there. But to say it this early on, he kind of realizes he has to stop himself, I would have assumed, because, there is just such a strong push to say we are wholly for the PC and Xbox architecture. But,
I think Microsoft's looking at what Sony's doing as well, and they see the value in putting their games on other platforms. Obviously, they're already putting their first-party stuff onto Windows PCs, and I think there'll be timed exclusivity with this Bethesda stuff. I don't think it will be forever exclusive. This isn't the same, but the Medium is coming to PlayStation 5 at the end of this year, which was just Microsoft bought an exclusivity window for launch. But I think they will probably let big Bethesda titles leak onto those other platforms, because the fact is there's going to be 3 times as many PlayStations out there as there is every generation, because of Japan and Europe. They love PlayStations. So it's it's a massive market. It's another 1 million copies of Starfield that'll sell, conservatively. So it's like,
and Skyrim on PS5.
And Skyrim on PS5. So I think Microsoft will make sure that they get the value and find the sweet spot for how their exclusivity works with the Bethesda stuff. And I think that's going to be like, we're not going to say when it's coming to PS5 so that you do go out and get yourself a Microsoft platform to play this on, and then bleed that dry. Once that starts to taper back down, go like, all right, let's put it out on PlayStation and expand the market a bit more.
I wonder if because I don't actually think it will end up on PlayStation. I think if it ends up on PlayStation, I just don't think you spend $7 billion on a series of studios to ever let those games go anywhere else, because all you're trying to do is get people to come to Game Pass. I think that they're probably, Todd Howard and Phil Spencer are probably going, how do we get Game Pass onto PlayStation? Is like, how can we get that service on there? Or the second thing, which is like, and a story that we'll talk about a bit later in the show, but where it's like you can buy a $10 streaming stick, or your smart television already has the Xbox Game Pass app there, and so you just need to subscribe. So whether or not it's happening on PlayStation, or it's, like you said, in Japan, obviously PlayStation has a huge uptake, but you don't necessarily need to buy an Xbox or a PC to ultimately end up playing Xbox games. Yep. So that could be where it's coming from. But I am hopeful that they get some more, I guess, some focus around their games, because even though like the jank is fun and the jank is, we spoke about it last week, but if you've got these sort of flagship titles coming to the thing, I think that and you're only developing for 2 platforms, I suppose, as opposed to 3, then maybe there is a little more that you can do. But we'll see. I think at the moment he's just you're just putting Todd Howard out there to really like start talking about Xbox and Game Pass, and reminding people that this partnership is now well and truly underway. Yeah. Next up, so this is a story that actually broke a couple of weeks ago. We were going to talk about it, then we didn't have the news. It then didn't come up at all during E3, but it is super interesting that there is a rumor that Ubisoft are putting out a Tom Clancy crossover game featuring The Division, Splinter Cell, and Ghost Recon. So this leak came from Twitter user 0bytes, who shared official-looking images from the game and referred to the game as The Division Battlecat, which they said is not clear if it's a project name or an actual name. I guarantee that's a project name. I just don't think you're putting out a Tom Clancy game called Battlecat. The photos hint towards a role-based player versus player first-person shooter with different game modes. This is something that, if true, lend some credence to the idea of like why Splinter Cell has not been an IP that they've been looking at all recently. Splinter Cell has not sold as well as the other games that Ubisoft continue to push, which is a big reason why Splinter Cell, we haven't seen a new one in so long. But Gus, is this sort of role-based, almost Overwatchy game in the Tom Clancy universe, the Clancyverse, or the Tomverse? But the Clancyverse sounds better. Is this the kind of thing that you would want to see if we're not going to get a Splinter Cell?
I think you answered the question there, but if we don't get another Splinter Cell, then I'll take anything in terms of, like, it'd be interesting for Ubisoft to mix it up by combining a lot of their franchises, or at least the ones that they have under the umbrella of Tom Clancy. I think it's funny how that series, or that sort of umbrella, has fractured in the past sort of 10 or so years to go from these direct little franchises where you had Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell, Rainbow Six, all those kind of things. And it's like, this probably makes sense for them to start pushing them all together into some kind of whatever works. And maybe a hero-based shooter could be an interesting spin on it. We know that, like, the multiplayer PvP from the Splinter Cell series, it's really, really interesting. It was kind of this... this uneven match guards versus spies version of it that was really, it's like pioneering, and then it just sort of took a back seat. So personally, I know that, like, I would love just a reboot of the Splinter Cell series. I think it's a great espionage kind of just take on the genre. But I feel like Ubisoft are pushing more and more into this stranger space. We've seen it with the Rainbow Six series. We've got I think Extraction is the next game in that series, which is, personally, like, I'm excited by another Rainbow Six game, or I'm excited by another game in that engine, but I do really love my old Tom Clancy SWAT-based story games. So I think we're going to see less and less of that. And so in that sense, I believe this is totally underway. Whether or not what Battlecat is, it's like, I feel like it feels like some sort of hub they're going to build and then put as many of their franchises in. But just to finish, to have, like, Division, Splinter Cell, and Ghost Recon, I find that strange in the sense that Division and Ghost Recon I put together as these kind of, like, hero-less, just sort of factions of Tom Clancy verse, which is essentially saying the Division is apocalyptic urban warfare, and Ghost Recon is sprawling outdoor combat, whereas Splinter Cell is, like, hardcore story-based stealth. It's very different. And so I feel like they should just either throw everything in that's under Rainbow Six. Like, go nuts. Like, if you're going to go as nuts as you're being with something like Siege, you've got heroes now that have, like, they can burst through walls and, all this kind of craziness. Like, just go crazy. Throw the whole thing in the mix and make, as you said, a Clancy-verse hero shooter. Whereas just to pick these three games, that's probably the thing that's got me just slightly apprehensive, being like, it feels a bit weak sourced for the beginning, but again, we're so early on, we don't really know what this is yet.
Yeah, I think, like, for me, I don't have any clue what this is that isn't just putting Tom Clancy in Siege. Tom Clancy in Siege. That would be great.
that would be a wild
Sam
update.
Fisher in Siege. I love how focused the Splinter Cell games are. The thing that it isn't is a game as a service. It's level based, it's story based, and it has a finish line, and that's what I think is really compelling and good storytelling in them. But there's no legs in that, and we're only seeing Ubisoft go for bigger, broader, play forever kind of games except for the Nintendo Mario Rabbids crossover.
So I will happily play that forever.
Totally, yeah.
And I'd happily let them take part in the, what is this? Battlecat as well.
They obviously didn't have a lot of success with the last Ghost Recon Wildlands game, big, broad. The Division is the Division. I think I could see a world where they actually pull Ghost Recon and Division back towards what Splinter Cell is, in that you might play some missions as a Sam Fisher-style deep behind enemy lines character, and then there might be another mission that is your little classic Ghost Recon, like 4-player squad, pushing in heavy fire and more action sequency. And I don't know whether Division comes into play, but we could just ignore that for now. But like maybe
someone's in a beanie.
Yeah, someone's in a beanie, or Gus has a backwards hat on, and he's standing on the sidelines rubbing his beard.
That's Ghost Recon.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, it's all of them. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe if there was something that did a little more classic Ghost Recon that kind of tied itself in with the idea of what a Splinter Cell game is doing, which is like these big Bond-like spy missions that like span the globe and chase down the supervillain and and hunt the threads of this intriguing story, as opposed to just being like big sprawling play forever kind of stuff.
You're right, because that sprawling stuff has very much become, I think, just something that's fatigued a lot of gamers. And when I was mentioning before the Splinter Cell, like, asymmetrical multiplayer, and even the Division's multiplayer with that kind of, like, what's the dark zone, where you had to sort of extract stuff, and it would, like, they have some really ambitious multiplayer ideas, or they have in the past. I mean, even Rainbow Six going full multiplayer with Siege and being like, oh, it's actually a PvP shooter that always rotates around an objective in the middle of the map. I always forget that about Siege. It's not just 6v6 shoot each other. It's like you've got to disarm bombs or save hostages, etc. Which, again, there's enough ideas in that mix. I know Siege isn't part of this directly, but like I think that's what I'd be the most interested to see. Like, try a really ambitious mix-up of a way to like not just replicate an Overwatch or a Valiant or something, and do something that feels, as you said, Pete, like it could be tied to a more interesting narrative, or something that is Tom Clancy-esque. Which, again, let's remind ourselves, this is an author who wrote like military espionage and over-the-top bombastic stories, not just like they had a gun, therefore it's Tom Clancy. It's like, that's how I feel like it's been played in the last couple of years, which has been a bit disappointing.
And just looking at this footage of Splinter Cell in action, it's like there's nothing like that at the moment. There's nothing that is like this, like it is a strategy game with a gun. It's like, it's really cool, like navigating light. They did some really interesting missions around the idea of light being in it, avoiding it, when to go like loud and when to use your sticky shockers and all those cool little gadgets and stuff, man. It's just, I want it so bad.
I know, I want it so bad. I think we need to make our peace with the fact that we're probably not going to get it.
Yeah.
Gus, I agree with you that like some sort of like different multiplayer, but I think that like, look at the games that have multiplayer. The only real development in multiplayer that has been popular is Battle Royale. We're still playing Team Deathmatch.
Yeah.
We're still doing defusing bombs, like push objectives. Like, it's all the same stuff. Like, there's not a huge amount of like ambitious multiplayer games that actually catch on. And Battle Royale was really the newest one that took off, and obviously like wildfire. With this, I think it's amazing that Tom Clancy's name is still on things. Like, that is the greatest contract in the history of entertainment. I feel like it is like you said, it's the most tangential link to, like, does this person have a gun? Yes, it's a Tom Clancy tie-in. But I guess with this, they said that there's potentially 2 game modes, Escort and Ringleader. Escort is basically escorting a package to a specified area without the defending team stopping you, so that's like pushing the bomb in Overwatch. And then Ringleader is a deathmatch game mode where rings have to be collected from killed enemies. So that's like where you're, picking up dog tags or something in COD. What I thought about when I heard this was less something like Overwatch, even though that sounds like Overwatch, but something more like Heroes of the Storm, where Heroes of the Storm took characters from different universes and different game types and then brought them all together in one game and kept the essence of how that game plays in that character. So you've got World of Warcraft, where you had a lot of brawlers or mages, but then you would also have StarCraft characters who came in and like went invisible, had guns, and they're going up against people who have hammers and stuff. But you're kind of bringing the tone and the gameplay from a series of games, and you're distilling it into one or two characters that are now coming into like a shared world. So I figure that's what we're seeing in this, that you'll see like you said, the Splinter Cell is much more about Sam Fisher, but put goggles on someone and have them scared of the light, and you've got whatever the cell was in Splinter Cell. That's all of them.
He's not scared of the light. He just feels more comfortable in shadow. Okay.
Okay. Right. So he'll be like a stealthy character who attacks the map differently.
Yeah.
There's potentially something interesting here. I actually think the folding of these worlds, except for Splinter Cell, mainly the folding of like Division and Ghost Recon makes sense, because in my head it's always been so hard to differentiate those two things.
Well, I was going to say
different locations, but still basically the same game.
Totally. And when you mentioned they're creating a shared universe or even a shared world or even a shared platform that these games or versions of can be played from, that definitely doesn't sound like, sorry, double negatives here, that sounds like something that would definitely be appealing to the people having to design these games continually, these iterative games. Like, as you said, people... It's definitely a move I could see them making, saying, let's just bring all this stuff in under one umbrella. Let's bring it in under one game launcher that essentially is, they're all starting to blur a little bit, I think. And so I think it's the idea of someone coming in and saying, hey, let's, instead of trying to fracture this off with individual games that do okay, do really well, do really poorly, it's like, let's just try and bring all those people into, or bring all these characters and game modes into one thing that we can manage better. And that's something I think Ubisoft would definitely do. And I think the Tom Clancy universe is probably overdue for it. So
yeah, it's also totally in line with what Pete, like you said before, with Ubisoft's new outlook of going, we still want some of our big main games like Assassin's Creed and stuff, but moving to a games as a service thing and not having to maintain, maybe, even though there is a free Division game coming, we're probably not going to see a Division 3. So you don't need to maintain these different IPs. If this is successful, you fold them into one. So you've got the big behemoth as opposed to like tons of online service games. So yeah. Anyway,
Clancyverse.
We'll see.
I'm on board now.
The Clancyverse, exactly. Like it makes it. If there's anything that makes sense with this, it's to make a Clancyverse, because it's you can then add everything as opposed to like trying to figure out what makes all these things different. Something that is very different, but is also a very long way away, apparently, is Hellblade 2, which we did not see during E3, but we did see a sort of teaser trailer during that second stream that Xbox had a couple of days ago, over the weekend, where they revealed some more gameplay from things that they showed in the show. And Hellblade 2 developers came out and said, we are hard at work at the game, but we're hard at work on creating the big, chunky vertical slice to then develop into the rest of the game. So it sounds like they're still in really, really pre-production phase of this, or testing phase. We saw a trailer that didn't show any gameplay. It showed some cinematic stuff, and it also showed some motion capture and sort of like behind the scenes crew work. I actually thought it was a pretty effective trailer of like making me still maintain interest in this thing, but it's looking like, Pete, Hellblade 2 is much further off than at least I expected, thinking it would come out sometime in the first half of next year. Yeah,
which I think is promising, because it means they're, the thing about that first Hellblade game was that it was, it felt like a small studio had developed it and punched way above their weight. And I think if they just moved straight into production in the same way that they knew how to, after Microsoft threw a bunch of money at them, then you'd be disappointed by that. It would still feel like Hellblade 1,
totally,
with a bit of extra polish somehow. But I think this means there's been some interesting kind of structural changes in the studio, where they've kind of like stepped back and go like, all right, how do we make games now that we are this effectively much, much larger studio, or at least plugged into a much, much larger network where they can communicate with other developers who are owned by Microsoft and implement some ideas that maybe were too out of reach before, and are now very much within reach because of the resources that they have at Microsoft. So, I mean, just seeing like how, yeah, you're right. It's like we don't really see anything, but we see some scans of Iceland, and then you're like, all right, I want to be there. I'm excited for that.
This trailer is a masterclass on how to show a trailer when you haven't made any more game.
Yeah.
Like, it's superb. And it's, as Nick said, it's really engaging, and it's very kind of eye-opening to think, what on earth are they making? They also, like, hired whoever did the credits for, like, Seven or a David Fincher film. It's just like, oh my God. It's just, like, stylistically super intense. But you're right, Pete. It's that thing of going, like, we don't probably... We have a lot of research, but we don't have a lot of game to show off. And it's like, how do we demonstrate that? And I'd be surprised if they weren't making a game that was quite ambitious, I think, not just on a technical level, but also on a storytelling and kind of like thematic level, because that was such a big takeaway from the previous game, is that it looked on surface level like an action game set in a I don't exactly know the time period. Was it? It wasn't fantasy. It was kind of semi-fantasy.
It was like a mythology.
Yeah, in that realm, like that's enough. And then they took so much of it to do with voices and mental health and some like very interesting, deeper themes that I was not expecting when I played that game. So I feel like from what we're seeing in this trailer and from the developers' history, it's like they're clearly going like we're going deep into the mind here, not just like scanning rocks and going, look how good our shiny rocks are.
Yeah.
So
I think this trailer is a David Fincher opening credit sequence.
Yeah,
for a film.
totally.
This is, it's very impressive. I feel like with this, because the narrative when Xbox, the new Xbox Series launched, was they were like, here's this console, we don't have any games for you to play on it. Yep. You just have to play old stuff. And Hellblade 2 was one of the few games that they were like, it's coming, and they were implying you would play it pretty soon. I think that they kind of just potentially held their cards really close to their vest, because they've now revealed, well, actually, there's a pretty meaty suite of Xbox games coming over the next 12 months. They're looking for major Game Pass releases each month, major first-party releases every 3 months. And so they can now go, actually, Hellblade was just... It was a title when we told you, oh, it's coming, and we made you feel like it's coming soon. But now you know that Halo's coming, Forza Horizon's coming, Psychonauts is coming. Like, all the stuff that they've announced over the past couple of weeks of going, actually, it's fine. You don't need this game now because you'll get this game in 2 or 3 years' time. But it's okay. We've got plenty of things to now fill your time. The narrative around Xbox has completely shifted to, I'm excited about all the Xbox games coming out, and Hellblade, some of the weight has lifted off its shoulders as being like one of the few things that people can say like, yes, I know it's coming and I'm looking forward to playing it.
Which overall is a positive thing, because it means people will have those games coming out. But if you were stupid enough to say put the Hellblade 2 as, I don't know, like your fantasy draft picked as one of the extra games in that, then this has totally screwed you over, and I feel sorry for anyone in that position.
Who was that?
It was me.
Was it you?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, no. Is it really?
I'm pretty sure it's in mine.
Is it? I've got it here somewhere. Hang on.
I've
got
I'm
it.
90%
Pocket
sure
League
I
draft
picked it.
results.
I'm 90%
Oh, it
sure it's me.
is. Oh, my God. That should have been the lead story on this.
I thought that's what you knew the whole time.
No. Your first 2 picks were Breath of the Wild 2 and Hellblade 2.
Yeah, I'm screwed.
A 2022 game and a 2029 game.
Yeah, so I mean,
God.
good news for the developers, bad news for Gussie here.
And also Roller Champions coming out going, sorry.
No, but that's this year. I will get that. That is my one win, and that'll be 100. That'll be 100. Oh, thanks so much. Deathloop and Roller Champs, Sons of the Forest
Hellblade
has probably
2.
been cancelled.
Oh my goodness. You're going for a
What a
clean 0
twist.
points, mate.
Yep,
Very nice.
Swish. That's how
I also
swishes
feel
work,
like
right?
I remember when you picked these, and it was like, oh, and you were like, I'm going for those picks that if they land, then I've won. And if they haven't landed, then like I don't have a chance. And that's
all on the nose. None of this each way betting.
It's an aggressive strategy. And then Songs of the Forest. Exactly. Good times. Okay. Good. Okay. Well, I did not. That was a beautiful cap to this because I completely forgot that. Moving on to a logistical story, I guess. EA is going to let you preview FIFA loot box packs before you buy them in a new limited time mode. So Wesley Yingpool from Eurogamer reported, under increasing pressure from governments, children welfare groups, and gambling charities. I don't know what a gambling charity is, but don't put money on it. Money. EA today has added the ability to see what's inside FIFA 21 loot boxes before you buy them. So this is not for packs obtained from the FIFA Ultimate Team store. This is from the Festival of Foot FIFA Ultimate Team Ball, and there's only one pack type available during the event. So basically the way that it works is you're going to select that you want to buy this thing. You will then get a preview pack to be able to see inside the thing. Previewing a pack does not mean you've made a decision to buy it. Once you have selected to preview the pack, you'll see the opening animation, and then it will reveal all the cards inside that pack. If you do not buy the pack, you will then see the previewed pack remains in the store, and it's now on a refresh timer. So the timer then has to expire before you can preview another pack of the same type. So in one example given by EA, a pack expired in 20 hours and 35 minutes. So you go to open it, you don't like what's in there, and you go, okay, I'm going to wait 20 hours to then look in another pack. Or you can purchase a previously previewed pack as long as that preview is still active.
Purchase a previously previewed pack.
Expiry window. Yeah, it's a very, very complicated process. Which,
and if anyone's booted up FIFA recently, you will know through their menus, their systems, they are a confusing interface. Full stop. So this just feels on par for what they do.
It's just really strange because it's like this dying industry, because like FIFA is one of the few games I feel like that still has loot boxes. Like loot boxes are being eradicated from the face of gaming pretty efficiently, and this process is EA,
Overwatch? Apex definitely has them.
Yeah, so you've got basically all
anything EA
games that sell stuff. Yeah, and then you've got Hearthstone. And you've got Overwatch. And then you've got Dota during, like, when they give you trinkets for the international.
Yeah. I guess things like Apex and, like, I guess other Battle Royales generally have to have some system like that, don't they? Or they're all Battle Passy now, aren't they?
So much Battle Pass stuff is, like, the way that works. So
which essentially is previewing everything you're going to get. You just have to earn it, which is why people, I think, are like it so much more. And this is them trying to find a way to do that.
It's just weird that they've got this system where it's like, look in a pack, decide you don't want it, and so therefore wait to spend money as opposed to like get you to spend the money in a different way if it's with some sort of like, Ultimate Team, Battle Pass,
if you look at a pack and then you decide to buy that pack, can you now look at another pack? Does that 20 hours reset? That's what I would be curious about, because otherwise,
it does.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you could be like, that's kind of an incentive in itself. You look, you don't want, you want to look again. So it's like, I'll buy this one that just came with some things. Like,
but it's also like, what are you doing at that point? You're just pre-opening something before you've paid for it. Like that's buying loot boxes. Is like open it, be disappointed. Open another one.
It just disappoints you twice. To
exactly. Before you've paid the money. Yeah.
I do like the idea of like any games that want to do a thing which is just like, hey, just have the opening animation. I would just happily do that through games and be like, I don't want any of this crap that's in them, but just let me see the like Overwatch. I'm like, it's also satisfying. I'm like, I don't want this crap. I just like this animation.
Well, that's what this has. You can look at the animation, and it will play the full animation and not pay it. So it's like loading up COD and just having that little fire erupt on the Battle Pass every time you hit a new level, but not actually needing to buy.
It's like sitting in the pokies area and just listening to the sound of the pokies, which is a horrible example.
Just listening to the sound.
It's a horrible noise. Oh dear, weird, very weird.
It's just it's a strange.
I wonder if it'll do well though. That's the weirdest thing. Like we don't really have a take on, or I think like a read on who's buying and how much money they're making from this stuff. And I assume it's FIFA.
It's astronomical. It's still huge. Yeah.
Yeah,
which is why they're trying to hang on to it in this weird, bizarre way of going like, we don't want to get rid of it, so we're going to do this thing that doesn't really help anybody.
I guess can you do it? You can't really do a battle pass for something like FUT, can you? Because it's not like,
well, I was thinking,
because it's like cards that contribute to how well, like how stacked you are, right? As opposed to just being like aesthetic stuff that's cool. That doesn't matter if you get to level 100 or not. It's like, oh, I need to get Cristiano Ronaldo in.
You could do it. You could do it in the way that like lots of battle passes do, which is you could put cosmetics in there of like team uniforms, which is something that like come in packs as well. So you could just go like like different cosmetics when it comes to that. You could put a few key players. You could put like your Ronaldo at 100. So when you hit that, you get him. But you could also just put packs as your reward. So either coins or packs. So like, even though it's still a random chance, it's like instead of paying per pack, you've paid $10 and then you're just playing a ton and then it will pop and you'll get this pack and it'll be completely randomized what's in there. But it's like, instead of making people pay per pack, but then people
you actually had a better idea in there than you realized, which is when you said you get Ronaldo at 100, you get to play Cristiano Ronaldo with a skin that has him at age 100.
That's good. He'll still be better than me. It's better.
I was like, that's great. Oh, you're talking about, okay, right. Level 100.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, that would be an amazing skin if it wasn't for the fact that they definitely need approval from everybody in these games. It would be amazing if it's like, oh, you've got
old Ronaldo,
like old Ronaldo. Would be a wonderful choice. Like Ronaldo when he Instagram Ronaldo, which is just him covered in body lotion, playing on the field.
Can't tackle that. The entire time. Just slips away.
Yeah, it just slips away. All right, that's enough about loot boxes. Remember when we spoke about loot boxes all the time? And I just feel like I have not bought a loot box in so long.
Yeah.
It's a nice feeling. I've bought all these battle passes that expire.
Instead?
That's less of a nice feeling. Moving on, something that could be a nice feeling, and we mentioned it earlier, Xbox working to put xCloud in TVs and developing an Xbox streaming stick. This has been going around as rumors for a while. There was a confirmation before E3 started. And Joe Screbbles at IGN writes that in a pre-E3 2021 briefing, head of Xbox Phil Spencer announced a number of improvements and extensions coming to the Xbox ecosystem that will include building its services directly into TVs, create Xbox streaming devices that negate the need for a console, and will add cloud gaming directly into PC and Xbox console experiences. So this was all stuff that he has spoken about and gone on the record as going, I would like to do this, but now it's coming out that this is what is happening. Some of the improvements include Xbox working directly with TV manufacturers to build Xbox experiences into internet-enabled TVs with only an extra controller to play. This would presumably use game streaming services rather than seeing games stored on TV hard drives. Xbox will also build streaming devices for cloud gaming, which will allow players to play Xbox games on TVs or monitors without the need for a console. Spencer previously hinted that streaming sticks could be bundled with a Game Pass subscription, but that wasn't mentioned in the new announcement. Cloud gaming will also be added to Xbox consoles and the Xbox app on PC, meaning that you can buy and download. You can play games before you buy and download them. Microsoft data centers are being upgraded with Xbox Series X hardware as opposed to Xbox One hardware and PC hardware. And cloud gaming in a browser will soon be open to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate members supporting Chrome, Safari, and Edge, and that will be open to all Ultimate members. So some confirmations, Gus, of things that we already kind of knew was coming, but I just feel like this is the beginning of the next decade of Xbox dominating the game landscape in every conceivable way.
Totally. And as you said, like the idea that they had all these ideas in the pipeline beforehand, and now it's just the ability to greenlight the fact that they're saying, here's what we're actually going to have in the next foreseeable future. I feel like for me personally, we've talked about this enough that it feels like it's inevitable, and therefore it's still super exciting, and I think it's an exciting way to change how we have these big lumps of plastic in our like lives. But at the same time, I feel like now that I've like streaming movies and even playing with Xbox and PlayStation and how well they do stream to certain devices, the thing that gets me here is it being built into the TVs. I think again, this is just me from like a product standpoint, but like the idea of being able to stream this an Xbox game in a browser for me sounds like something I should be able to do anyway by now. I know that sounds a little all sort of like based on internet and everything. But I'm like,
I want it now, Daddy.
No. It's like that technology kind of wouldn't shock me if I could do it today. I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. They're finally around to doing this kind of thing. The being built into TVs and having like a stick that basically is a Chromecast that says like, yeah, this is what will take over for you now. That for me will change the dynamic of how I see my TV setup and how I play and how I consider having a console or take it with me, I guess, is like the idea.
Totally.
That's the portability of that. Because I would say that like console gaming for me, like I'm sure many, is like I use it as my couch, big TV, feed up kind of gaming environment. Whereas like playing on a browser, playing on a phone, they're all really fun to do, but unless I feel like someone like you, Nick, who like then goes and buys a few extra products to really maximize that to be something that's playable, like it's one of those things that I like setting it all up, but then I actually got to play it, and I'm kind of like, this isn't the way I want. If I was in a browser, I'd play on PC or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's the stripping it away from my TV or giving me the ability to portably carry it around to like my home back in Melbourne and stuff like that. That's the stuff that I think could be game changing. Apologies. But yeah, so the other stuff I think will be nice and it'll get rolled out slowly. And then again, it's all with a huge grain of salt because we're in Australia where our internet is always the last across the line kind of thing. So I'm sure for many, this might not be as exciting, or this will have a longer sort of stretch until they can maybe run it the way it's being intended to be run, I think.
I guess to your point that we're in Australia, but I would say that like, I mean, our company is built around the idea that we are constantly remote accessing all of our machines from all these different places. Like we've played games via Parsec for preview events and that sort of thing. And that's held up pretty well. And that's not even optimized for games. Like that's not, there's nothing there. We're still using like a controller. It's even that stuff about how like the controllers talk to the interface as opposed to like talking via USB or Bluetooth and then going to the program, as opposed to, you know, like how the Stadia thing is like the controller is talking directly to the Wi-Fi sort of thing. So, yeah.
I guess I'm speaking more broadly for the country. It's like, yeah, as well.
Yes,
like I'm just
100%.
saying that we're getting there, and I think it's definitely at that point now where we can look at internet speeds and connectivity and be like, oh, like we are on par with like minimum specs for a lot of things, of a lot of these Silicon Valley pioneering pieces of tech or advancements in streaming that we're like, oh, we can play catch up to this now. I think, but I'm sure not everyone can, so it's going to be a long road, I think.
Yeah, like the you know, imagine the power even to at like 720p be streaming anything, and all you need is a controller, and the Xbox app is built into your new LG television that you bought, that mum and dad bought. You know, it's like you don't need anything else other than to pay the Xbox Game Pass subscription. You need a controller and that.
This is looking at the ultimate, right? This is what they're bundling is the ultimate Game Pass.
No, so they're saying the Ultimate members will get access to the cloud gaming in a browser. So they're basically just opening that up to Ultimate members. But they're saying that because, like, you know, my TV upstairs, which I bought last year, has, you know, Netflix and iView and Stan and Disney Plus and all that shit just built into it as apps, and I never use them because I use my Apple TV. But this would just be another app on there that I just subscribe to Game Pass, whether it's the Ultimate tier or the Standard tier or whatever, and then it just streams it directly to that. Yeah, and Pete, like it does just like completely open it up. I'm even more excited, I think, by the idea of that USB stick, because I think it's like you could be playing a game and then, like, basically to get a console in any room in the house, you just need that USB stick and a monitor that you could go like, oh, your kid who has their computer at home just can plug a USB stick into the back of it and suddenly they've got an Xbox. But that computer also can use it via the browser or whatever. You could take it to hotels. You can take it to your friend's place.
And
like,
you don't need a GPU. Like in your PC,
exactly.
It's like you just go like you go to any computer and you're like, oh, cool, I can play freaking Halo Infinite. Streamed. All you need is good internet. You don't need the GPU.
Do you think this has come like at just a fortuitous time, or that this current generation of consoles that have been released with the chip shortages, with the product not being available for so many people, plays a big part in this, in terms of them saying, well, if this is how much we're running into this as a hurdle in this generation, like there's a foreseeable more issues like this, and this is a way of, you know, getting past that. Do you think that's something that they are thinking quite seriously about in terms of not being able to get these expensive hunks of plastic. Like, there's the price thing, first of all, but there's just the product and the demand kind of element to the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was like part of the roadmap for them with the xCloud when when they first started pitching the idea of xCloud internally. But I think the fact that the silicon is shaping up the way it is, in that it is nowhere to be found, no one can make anything, then they'd probably want to put a rush on it. But I think they're also in a position where they've seen Stadia fail hard, and they don't want to make the same mistakes that Google made. So I don't know that they will like rush it and risk that failure, because I think they know they're onto a pretty cool thing here, and if it works, it's going to be good for everyone. Mainly Microsoft, and I think good for gamers as well.
And the fact that they've still got a lot of Xbox Ones out there and PCs that all have access to Game Pass as well is it's less of like the Sony side, where Sony are like, well, you can only play this game on a PS5. The fact that Xbox have PCs that can play their new Xbox titles is kind of like a bit of the weight off their shoulders, I suppose, when it comes to like how much hardware they need to ship out there. So yeah, and Pete, I think that they also have one shot to really nail this. They do not want to like have this fall on its face because it's just a lot of bad faith.
There's also, with those Xbox Ones sitting there, like there's no reason they couldn't have the Game Pass, the xCloud app drop on that, and then just like play the 4K version, if you can stream it, of the newest game that doesn't have a disc release on the Xbox One, but you'll just stream it on xCloud. You've got the device, go for it.
Yeah, totally. So we'll see how this plays out, but the fact that they're now properly talking about all this stuff, we'll see more of this roll out over the next 12 months. And also, we are getting cloud gaming for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate in Australia later this year, which has been confirmed as well. And then finally, the last piece of little Xbox news. This is not a big thing at all, but it dropped as part of the extra stream that they did over the weekend, is that the Xbox Design Lab is back. And that's where you can custom build or custom design Xbox controllers to your disgusting color choice whims. I actually think they've done. I love when they're like, we've put a lot of work into like making this very, like I've got a white Xbox controller right here. It's stark, it's clean, it's beautiful, and then they're like, but what if it was lime green and the sticks were two different colors? Yeah.
Well, allow me to introduce you to the back pocket controller.
Yes. Did you design one?
I bought this. I posted,
oh my God, really?
I posted in the Pocketeers Club as well, and I was like, what do you reckon? And we went coloured buttons because M&Ms.
Okay.
Sure.
And it's the pocket blue kind of on the, it's the two-tone of blue. I liked the white triggers as an accent. And
that's nice.
Where are you pulling that orange from?
The orange is the Patreon kind of. That was the closest I could get.
Yeah.
Was that or like a?
It says DIY Xbox
pink
controller in an orange box right below the controller.
That's two different colors. That's a burnt amber. I don't know. That's like, it's a faded red, but I assume, Pete, as you're saying, that's as close as you can get to that color.
It was, yeah. I would have loved for it to be a little closer, somewhere between this orange and the kind of more salmon-y pink that's there.
Salmon pink. If you went red, I assume red looked overkill.
Red was overkill as well. It was.
No, you made a good choice.
This is where
In fact, I saw orange with our logo recently in a document we all shared, and I'm like, I like the orange. Orange could be a fallback for us. Looks good. Very nice.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. So
has anyone gone mad with it and just like picked all? What happens if you pick all one color, like lime green, everything, and like triggers, buttons, start buttons, the glow? Like, did they just look disgusting?
I mean, it's nearly there. Like that one there with the orange knobs. Just turn those knobs green.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's a full green. Yeah.
Right.
But this is available in Australia now as well, which I believe the previous round were not.
No, they're still not available in Australia. So I'm not sure exactly what we're talking about, but I bought one, and I'm doing it through like Shipping Mate. So you get it delivered to a US address that then gets forwarded through to Australia. I assume they're doing that because they don't want to deal with returns and customer service outside of the outside of North America. I think it's available in North America, Canada, and maybe one other region.
Sure.
But it is limited, and it's totally because, like, probably half of them fail.
Yeah, totally.
But they'll look cool.
There'll be a notice that goes out, like, don't get the lime green triggers or something. There'll be like one color with one part of the controller that just does not work.
I love seeing this stuff because it's just a reminder that, like, it's really hard to do nice design.
Yeah, totally.
that getting something, PlayStation brought out the Midnight Black and Galaxy Red or whatever they're called, DualSense, and I really like the black one. I'm not crazy about the red one, but when I look at these, I'm like, oh yeah, it's hard to add color to anything. So I can see why the colors they're going with, like, these dark colors, because as soon as they see this, I'm like, I don't want this anywhere in my house.
Yeah, and totally, like, and we'll let you be the one that makes the mistake.
Yeah, totally.
And we won't deal with returns.
Yeah.
Why are you returning it? It looks ugly.
Yeah, exactly. That's on you.
Yeah. They take a few weeks to turn around and then ship. So it's like we're not going to finish building this thing for 3 or 4 weeks. So I won't have.
And
it for
the
a
build
while,
of these is, I assume, just the current Xbox Series X controller.
Yeah, they're not doing the one controller anymore, but the Series controller works on an Xbox One anyway. They're backwards compatible as well. So if you did want to do it, you totally could.
As awful as all of those colors are, it is a very cool thing to do. Like, if you think about the amount of work that must go into, like, these custom colors, it's pretty cool that you can go, there's, like, maybe 10 pieces of that thing that can be 10 different colors or whatever, and the fact that you can just design that and get an official licensed one shipped, pretty cool.
Yeah, and
I like
I've seen,
also
like,
just
people on Twitter have put together some actual, like, cooler designs than even appear here. It's like it's out there now, so people are actually finding cool tweaks, and, like, maybe that cool tweak is someone redesigned the Xbox 360 version of the controller, which you can do with, like, the darker grey on the back and the white sides and colored buttons and stuff like that. Simple as that. Cool. But then other people going, like, here's my inspiration picture, and then right next to it is, like, and this is the controller, and this is how they talk to each other.
Yeah, I think I saw one which is like, here's all the Avengers done as them and stuff like that. Yeah. And I appreciate that they have kept it limited in terms of what you can do color-wise, like, from a design level, that they haven't gone, there's gradients, there's decals, there's all this other stuff. Like, it is clean, and that's, like, I don't want one. I hate custom controllers. It's such a weird thing that I just, like, I've always had them. I do. I hate, not hate, but I just, but the people who are like, no, the people who constantly have a collection of these obnoxious promo controllers for things. I find, I just like the simple one that comes with it, all this kind of stuff. So, but I think if there's anything that's a stretch of me to say, like, I like what I'm seeing here, like, Peter, I like your design. Well done.
Yeah,
a bunch of PR people are just scratching Gus off email lists.
No one's sent, like, here's the other thing. No one's ever sent me one, so I've got nothing to. That's what it actually is. There it is.
All right, that is all the video game news that has happened this week and the last few weeks, actually, except for E3 week, where a shitload of news happened, and we've already spoken all about that. And there's nothing else you need to know.